Hello, welcome to Geek Bros Talk. I am your host, Jake, and this is my co-host, Elwood. And if you didn't know, this week's theme for our brotherly theme is obviously the Blues Brothers. So, I'm Dan Aykroyd. I'm Jim Belushi, and he's Dan Aykroyd.
John Belushi.
Yeah, John Belushi, not Jim
Yes.
Belushi. Wrong Belushi. John Belushi and
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd. Anyways, this week, you know, per usual, we have a few topics that we want to discuss. So first, going to be going into basically PC building. If you didn't know, my brother over here, he's building a new Linux PC because his current hardware is just not cutting it for him right now. He has sub $200 laptop and can't really do
Yeah.
anything too intensive on it. So we're gonna be building him like this great, awesome PC desktop for video editing, for light gaming, for everything. And so we're gonna dive into that a little bit. We'll talk about his current build, the differences in the builds, and if you want to build one too, what you should be looking for. It really depends on kind of like the application and what you're really gonna be using it for. Then we're gonna be talking a little bit about a movie that did just recently come out.
Yeah. Just this last week, Friday, actually.
Yeah,
The
this past
Accountant.
Friday. So it's called The Accountant. And do you want to give a brief synopsis or brief overview?
Yeah. When we get into that, I'll give a brief synopsis of it.
Okay. But can you I guess basically tell me what the movie's about?
Basically, an accountant slash assassin.
Mm.
That's
Interesting.
the
I don't think you see
synopsis.
those every day.
No.
And
No.
then the last thing we're gonna talk about is Samsung's new Chromebook Premium.
Yeah. Chromebook Pro.
Chromebook Pro. That's a kind of a
Yes.
mouthful, but basically
Yeah.
it's a around $500 tablet Chromebook hybrid, and we haven't really seen those yet. And
Yep.
we'll really be talking about because that kind of seems to be on the higher end of the spectrum as far as
Yep.
price goes.
Mhm.
All right, so let's get into it. The first thing we're talking about is PC building. If you haven't been keeping up with us, for my brother, we're ordering his parts slowly but surely. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're trying to save money wherever we can. Not to say we're going for the cheapest parts, but we're waiting for the right sales to happen. And if you guys didn't know already, I'm a huge proponent of deals, saving money, quote unquote. But I really do believe if you wait for the right time, you can save upwards of anywhere from 20 to 40, 50, 60% off MSRP. And that really does add up a lot because when you save in one area, you could spend that money and reinvest it into another area, right? So for example, you save some money on like your hard drive, your RAM. Well, take the money you spent and then get a better processor out of it or get a better video card out of it, right? And the great thing about this is that these deals are pretty, they happen a few times a week, and it really doesn't take too long for a good one to come up for you to snag it. And also, I feel like unless you're really, really impatient, you just wait out a little bit. The hardware, it's not time sensitive. You can wait a little bit. If anything, the price is just gonna keep going down. But it's a really sweet spot of saving money, but then getting it, in time. We're not waiting for like the next generation to release, so these previous things like price drop. But yeah. So let's go a little bit into that, and
Yeah.
basically, why are we building your PC? What is the purpose? What is your purpose? What are you gonna do with your
Sure.
PC?
Sure. Now, before we get into this episode, I just want to briefly mention something about this whole Blues Brothers thing.
Sure.
The funny thing is, last week, before we did our episode, we were thinking about different brothers to use. And my brother suggested the Blues Brothers. And I was thinking, no, that's not really geek theme enough. And so what happened was one of my our commentators, his name, I think the name is D Steel 27.
Shout
He
out.
mentioned, yeah, shout out to D Steel 27. And he was just like, hey, why don't you do the Blues Brothers? I was like, man, that's so funny. My brother suggested we do the Blues Brothers. And so there you go. So that's why we do that. Unfortunately, my brother's the only one who has black, Ray-Bans. And this is the closest I could get. And we didn't do the suits or anything. So
I was contemplating on doing the suit. I think
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
everything ready for it. But yeah, so I guess great minds think alike. So
yes,
thank you for
that's
that
right.
suggestion.
So thanks a lot for our commentators for
Mhm.
actually getting it on there. So getting into the whole Linux PC build, the whole reason I'm needing to do this is because obviously I'm doing a lot more multimedia, a lot more video editing. So it does require a lot more power. And as anybody who watches my channel knows, I'm very, very frugal when it comes to buying hardware. Like I mentioned many times in my other videos, I purchased my laptop, which is my main laptop, from a pawn shop. So it's about $160, $170. And so that's fine for like web browsing, but if you're doing work on it, it's difficult. I mean, I do other things besides that. I have clients that I do a lot of marketing and stuff for. And so it'll work for that, but definitely need more power if you're going to be doing anything more than that. And on top of it is the whole issue of storage as well. Your laptop only has so much storage, even if you have an external drive. I like to have that flexibility. So primarily power, that's the main reason. And then also I'm thinking about the future, I'm going to need to do 4K editing. I cannot do that on here. Even if I get a really beefy laptop, it's not going to be equivalent to having a desktop at the same price. And initially, I thought about just buying a PC all built in one because I'm not a gamer. I'm not a modern gamer. Okay, I like old retro games. And I was thinking, just go to Best Buy and get one. And I saw one. It was a Cyber Power PC. It's on sale for $400. I showed it to my brother, and he laughed. So,
not to say Cyber Power PC is bad, but just that particular entry. It was a very budget entry into the market, and it was, I think, $300-$400, and
it's on sale for $400.
Yeah. And at that price point, I feel like if you have a shiny case and a shiny mouse and keyboard, a lot of people are going to be buying into it. But you can build the equivalent for much cheaper, and if anything, you could spend that same amount of money to get something much better. That's not to say CyberPower PC is bad, because they do have some pretty good offerings, especially in like the mid to upper range. So it's just that particular one.
Yeah, and just to let you know the specs that I saw, because I kept thinking about myself. I mean, I don't do a lot of gaming, so I was just looking at the specs. It was an AMD processor. It had I think it was integrated graphics card. I think
it was like a Radeon 240.
Yeah. It's older. I didn't know. I mean, and then at the same time, it had 8 gigs of RAM. It only had 2 DIMM slots, and it did have a nice case with the cool colors. And it came with a gaming keyboard.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be sufficient. But when my brother saw it, he saw it, even though it was on sale for $399. And just to let you know, my brother, like he says, he knows about hardware, and at the same time, he has the unique skill of finding really, really good deals. And so that's why my brother, he's basically my PC building consultant. So he's getting all the parts. And so that's kind of why I went that route, because if my brother had picked the parts and practically built it, I'm going to physically build it, but he puts everything together. I'm going to get a machine that's going to last me a lot longer, so that's why I went with my brother's consulting skill.
So, there's a ton of reasons why you want to get a desktop, maybe over a laptop. Of course, you got to outweigh the pros and the cons. So, to me, the biggest pro is that the price per performance is a lot better on desktops versus a laptop. If you're going to be getting like a workstation laptop, expect to pay $1,500 plus, right? For a decent gaming laptop, I would say $700, $800 minimum, plus, if not, to the $1,200, $1,300s. Whereas you can build an equivalent desktop for, $500, $600. But then you have to take in consideration portability. Do you really need to take a machine that powerful everywhere? In my case, and in my brother's case, no. It would be nice for it to be portable, but more often than not, I see, at least myself, spending a lot more time at home, whether it's development or playing games. And I would say the same is probably true for you. But, if you're in university or something, maybe you do want a more portable solution. So it really does depend on, what you need to do, and I guess, where you need to do it.
And I did want to mention something. I mean, I did do my first Linux PC build because my brother, he picked out the parts, he sent it to me. And so let me show you the power of having the knowledge to find the great deals. I got my first 2 things. It was I'll leave the description in the links below if you haven't seen my first Linux PC build video. But I'm gonna call it the monster Linux PC build, because to me it is a monster machine. So he got me 2 things. The first thing is the EVGA power supply, which is a 550 watt power supply. It's the gold version. And so this is a modular power supply. So it's gonna last a long time, and you could use it on a variety of chipsets. upcoming chipsets as well. And because it is modular, you have a lot more flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing he got me with this really, really cool in-win all creamy white case, very minimalist. It's a mid-tower, and it's great. It's got what I need. It will allow me to upgrade in the future, and they're very, very high quality. And just to let you know, the EVGA power supply, I looked online, that thing is about $80, and then the mid-tower is about $90. So my brother was able to give me the mid-tower for $70, and the power supply for about $50, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, and so, even from there, we already saved $50, which, and those are just from 2 parts. So, when you start saving here and there, it really does add up, and it's kind of a sum is greater than all of its parts.
Yeah, and I do want to note one thing that I just mentioned earlier. These are quality parts, and I want to go back to the pre-built machines. It's not that they use crappy parts. It's
in
just
some
that
cases
they're not
they do.
Going to be the latest and greatest.
Actually, in some cases they do. A lot of pre-built power supplies aren't great. I just put it out there, even like down to the motherboard, right? Because they do need to cut costs somewhere, right, for them to get a bigger margin off the sale. But I can go into a little bit why I chose these 2 things, and
please.
And why it's gonna fit your build really well. So a lot of you may be saying 550 watts. How is that gonna be a monstrous PC? As time goes on, power efficiency does get better and better. Basically, as hardware gets smaller, it requires less electricity. So newer processors, newer video cards become a lot more efficient in terms of the power that they draw. And in my brother's case, he's not going to be overclocking his processor or his video card anytime soon. So 550 watt is very respectable if you're not overclocking or running SLI. And in this case, he's not. If you're going to go for a more hardcore gaming rig, I would, suggest a 650, 750 upwards. If you're going to be doing any type of overclocking, I would say more hardcore overclocking or running, dual video cards. But in this case, 550 watts is going to be perfectly fine. And even at 550 watts, I think he can even do some overclocking with the processor. And so the other 2 things he mentioned is that it's a gold standard, and also fully modular. So the 2 reasons why I want to choose that, because power supplies do come in different ratings. You go from, I think, bronze to gold to platinum. And basically what it's just saying is that, as the level goes up, it's going to be a little more costly, but it's going to also be a lot more reliable, and efficiency-wise, it's also going to be a lot better. So gold's going to be a lot more efficient than bronze. You can have a 550 watt bronze and a 550 watt gold, and they're not the same power supply. They won't even be able to give you the same amount of power draw. The gold's going to be more efficient, so you can actually, it's going to be, even though the numbers are the same, it's going to be a little better, right? The second part, the fully modular part, cable management is great in PC Window for, a couple of reasons. I would say the first reason is, to make it look, well, this one's arguable, but when you have less clutter in your case, you have better airflow, which means lower temperatures, which means less stress on your computer. Whether you're overclocking or not, cool temperatures is always a huge factor to take into consideration. So, and with the fully modular, just use whatever cables you want. It's going to make it look nice. It's going to give it better airflow. And yeah, it just makes it a lot easier to work with as well. And so, yeah, the reason why we chose that case, you can spend a little less on that case. You can find cases anywhere, from like 25 to 150, really. So we chose kind of a middle ground, and the reason why we chose this case, one was because of the sale. It's a pretty tempting price at $70, but just for aesthetically speaking, it looks really good at that price point. It's like tempered glass, all aluminum. Just describing it doesn't do it justice. You really do need to see a picture of it, and if not, just look at it in person, So I'm actually jealous of the case that he got, but
yeah, I was really impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I keep going back to, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is quality. I mean, if you picked up this power supply, this is built like a tank. It was solid all the way around, and the case I could feel right away. I mean, the case that I felt at the store, which the computers are pre-built, and once again, it's not the manufacturer. They're trying to save costs where they can. That case felt really plasticky,
right.
and it didn't have as many slots for different cards.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this mid tower automatically, it felt heavy, it felt solid, the aluminum, and then the way that it was built, the tempered glass, I love that. But I also love the fact that it's screwless. And so the last time I built PCs was when I had like Windows, I can't remember the last version I actually built a PC. And it was way different then. The power supplies were all mangled. There wasn't any customization. I would fry a lot of motherboards because I was putting the wrong the wrong wires in the wrong places. And it was just not fun. And most of the PC building back then, the design was like last thing on the list. And they were just boxes, nondescript boxes. But when I saw this mid-tower case, awesome. And then it had functionality. One thing I didn't show in my video is when you turn it on the side, it has a honeycomb grill. And then when you take the two screws, which are screwless, you just twist them off. You have access to this shelf, which you could put in your hard drives in there. I'm assuming you could put a lot more things in there. Very, very functional.
Yeah, so PC case design has come a long way from the 90s and even early 2000s. Now it's, form is as important as functionality, Yeah, so,
the only thing that I didn't like, and this is me being old school, I was really disappointed that didn't have drive bays in the front. I want to put a DVD, Blu-ray drive in there. But technology is different now, so a lot of people don't use optical drives anymore.
Yeah, there are still some cases with optical drives, but a lot of them are really opting out of it. I can really.
I'm glad I had an audio jack.
Yeah. I can count the number of times I've used a CD drive on one hand in the past 5 years since I built my first desktop. And worst comes to worst, you can get an external. You can always get an external drive. And worst comes to worst, you can just open up the side of your case and just connect your drive from there, and just kind of use it whenever you need to use it. Worst comes to worst.
Yeah, there was enough space there where you could put a drive and just close it. Nobody would see it. So it's a wonderful case. I just want to thank my brother. So what are the next steps in the PC building components that you think are very important that would make sense to get it?
Specifically for you, and again, the reason why we're building you this PC is for video editing. And just to go over that pretty briefly, the most important components in a video editing rig, or a workstation rig in this case, is going to be the processor. Hands down, for video editing, the processor. If you're doing 3D modeling, the video card has some input in there as well, but again, for video editing, it's going to be like 90% of the CPU doing all the work here. So for you specifically, since we do want to keep you within budget, to get the best price out of performance for your budget, which is around $700, we're going to be looking at the processors next. So there are two reasons why I kind of want to wait on this. One, the next generation of Intel processors are about to come out, so we may see a price drop in the current gens. Basically anything from the 4, 5, 6 series, they're all very, very competitive. And they're actually like relatively close to each other. So the thing about Intel is that there hasn't been a lot of performance gains from the 4000 series to the 5000 series to the 6000 series. So we'll see what happens when the 7000 series comes out, because it will be coming out pretty soon. So whether it's a better performance increase or a price drop in the older stocks, it's just a good thing to wait. So for video editing specifically, what it really is kind of contingent on is really multi-threading and hyper-threading, right? So we definitely need a really strong multi-threaded processor. And as you know, or as you may not know, those can get quite expensive. So I would say minimum for your build, we're looking at i7. I know we had talked previously, and I was a bit wrong in kind of recommending you an i5, but an i7, I would say if you're seriously looking to doing 4K, which you may do in the future. So when we look at the base i7 prices for the current generation, it's about $300 for I believe 6700. And then there are a few other things to take into consideration there too. You can buy an i7 that is locked, which means you can't overclock it, and you can buy an i7 that is unlocked, where you can overclock it to get that more performance out of it. So that's definitely one factor to take into consideration right now, but for the moment being, prices are kind of stale. Nothing too crazy. The other alternative is, and this is a very viable option for you since you're doing more of a workstation build, buying a new Xeon processor. So what these Xeon processors are, these are more server grade, workstation grade processors, and they're not really meant for the normal consumer. These are for the professional editors, professional modelers, even server racks. So what the Xeon offers in this case, if you do buy a used one, you're gonna get crazy amounts of computing power, even compared to the consumer. At this point, it's gonna be a lot better than like the 6700K for workstations for video editing, right? I'm not saying you should buy a Xeon processor for gaming, but it is an option, and it would work just fine. But the whole reason why we're considering Xeon in the first place is that if you can find one used and you can find a motherboard, because you do need to find a compatible motherboard, and since these are a bit older, they're going to be a little cheaper. But performance is going to be the same. It's going to be a lot better, and bare minimum it'll be the same. So we can save some money in that department, especially for your build. So right now we're just kind of waiting for the next generation of chips to drop, and then maybe seeing if a sale comes up on some more Xeon, on the Xeon option.
So why, speaking of price,
Sure.
why Intel versus AMD? Because AMD would be a lot more cost effective.
Right. So at the moment, I would say the last time AMD was very, very competitive neck and neck with Intel was probably the very old, what was the first AMD dual cores to come out? I forgot what they're called. But this was, maybe 10 years ago, back when AMD was the same, neck and neck, if not ahead of Intel. But, Intel has really, I would say, in terms of performance, for top tier performances, had the market share for the past 5, 6, 7 years. So right now, I would say AMD doesn't offer anything competitive for a workstation. It's just, the performance isn't there right now. But the thing is that AMD, they are coming out with a new chip architecture set pretty soon. It's called Zen. And a lot of people are banking on it to really be, a comeback for AMD to stay competitive. Maybe not to surpass Intel, but at least to, be neck and neck with them. So we'll see how that pans out. And that's another option, so whether 7 Series drops or Zen drops, we'll wait. So I think for now, the moment being, and you don't really need your rig like anytime soon, right? In the immediate future to do 4K video editing. I think that we're in the best thing for us to do is just wait for the moment being.
Yeah. And what about graphics?
Right. So for video editing, graphics card is actually not that important. The GPU just isn't used a lot for rendering, and the biggest part about video editing is the actual rendering process. So after, basically when you're exporting your video to the file, right, that's going to be the most intensive. And programs, they kind of, the difference between like the CPU and the GPU rendering it, GPUs are kind of better at like more polygon and like 3D stuff, whereas video encoding is just straight number calculations. So in your case, GPU may not be immensely important. The only real part that the GPU may be important is like, say you have 2 videos side by side, right? Because as a video editor, you kind of want to see, maybe 2 different sources, right? And so you're kind of like scrubbing or, kind of looking through each video. That's the only part I would say the GPU really comes in, and maybe some slight video effects on there. But
so you're thinking NVIDIA here?
NVIDIA, AMD, the video card segment for AMD is, the gap isn't as big, I would say, as a processor segment. So we'll really see. And I would say, it depends if you want to do some light gaming too, because I think you can get away with integrated graphics for video editing for now. Unless you're doing 4K, then maybe you want to step it up to a GPU.
Yeah, I definitely want to get a separate GPU.
Yeah. So it depends, I would say, my question to you at this point would be, how much do you want to game? And that's what really your GPU choice is going to be based on, rather than the actual video editing. Because I would say most cards, it'll be fine for video editing, but the real question is, do you want to game or not?
Yeah,
Which is,
I might want to in the future. That's the, because I am a retro gamer. I love my old school arcade games, but there are some games like the newest Doom. I just want to try it. And if my GPU is not capable, then I'd rather spend that little extra so then I can do light gaming if I wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, and
versus not be able to.
And the great thing about that is, if gaming isn't in your immediate future, you can always wait because prices are always going to drop. Tech's always going to get better, So whenever you're ready. But if you wanted a video card now, I would, for even light gaming, I would suggest, maybe around the $200 mark. So that would be equivalent to a Radeon 480 out right now. 480.
That got a lot of good ratings.
Yeah, 480. NVIDIA 1060. Even if you find some older cards, I see some of the older. By older, I mean, these cards just came out like a year ago, if that.
Yeah, it moves so fast.
Yeah, it moves extremely quick. So the Fury cards are around, I think, 250, 270. So those are only going to keep dropping. And if those come into a sweet price point, those can definitely play any game at 1080p, 60 frames per second. Definitely. $200 is a great area for that. If you step up monitor resolutions, then you may want to look into spending a little bit more. So I would say at this case, it depends on, if you want to play it now, then you get like a $200 card, 480, 1060. If you want to play at 1440p, 1070 Fury. If not, if you don't need it now, just wait because, those are only going to get cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah. Now, not to go in too long on a PC build, but the last part that I want to talk about is the fact that this is going to be a Linux PC first and foremost. And because of that, the reason why I asked my brother about the CPU and graphics card is the main issue if you are going to be using Linux as your primary operating system, and Linux does really well on this, but it's drivers. We've had issues with graphics cards. And also, as anybody who uses Linux knows, if you had to choose between an AMD or Intel processor, you would much rather go with Intel because there's more drivers that Intel provides to the Linux community, which can be used and they're more optimized for it. And I would say the same thing for Windows. More applications are optimized for Intel CPUs versus AMD CPUs. And then when you go to the GPUs, the same case goes here.
I would say for CPUs, since there are some CPU chipset drivers, but that's not really as important because at the end of the day, CPUs are just doing calculations, right? So whether it's Windows or Linux, it really depends on like the actual physical CPU itself, I think, rather than the drivers. But like you said, for graphics, for video drivers, that's a larger role. Whether you're doing Linux or Windows. And for Windows, for the most part, drivers are pretty even-sided. Some people say they have a lot of problems with AMD drivers. I've experienced a few, but nothing crazy. But for Linux side, I haven't done as much intensive things because all the Linux machines I use are out through terminal anyways, so I don't have a real need for video drivers on Linux, at least from my end.
Yeah, and what's funny is for people who do use Linux as their primary machine, especially if you're a Linux gamer, the driver support is extremely important. What's funny here is that NVIDIA, I think years ago, they were really blasted for not providing drivers. If you look up Linus Torvalds and NVIDIA, he even said F you to NVIDIA for not providing drivers. But now that has changed. AMD is the one not providing drivers versus NVIDIA. Their drivers support more Linux operating systems.
Right.
So, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That we made that switch. So.
And I would even say that Linux gaming isn't where a lot of people would want it to be right now. With Steam OS coming out, they really had a huge push to so back on the topic of Linux drivers, I think the last thing I was mentioning was kind of Steam OS was really being Valve's push forward to make Linux more of a gaming platform rather than being so heavily tied to Windows, and as more games are coming out, there's more and more support. So there's a few modern games have it. I would say it's still not the most optimal choice for now.
Yep.
And
the Vulkan API.
Yeah. So for one being, if you're gonna be doing any gaming, I would say Linux drivers aren't really a huge issue because you're probably gonna be playing in Windows anyways. So it's just the way it is. But if you do want to experiment, which is perfectly fine, and if you just absolutely despise Windows and you only want to play games in Linux, then there are your choices there for you. And I would say driver support is a lot better now than it has ever been. So for the games that are available out there, you should really have no issues running it.
Okay. So got a long way to go before this machine's done, but I think when it is done, and I'm going to keep making episodes on it, and at the same time, I am going to be chronicling my journey with my brother on building this. I'll leave a link below to my website where I've written a blog post on it that talks about it, and also I have the parts there as well. And so I'm super excited for this machine. I definitely want to thank my brother, and it's definitely going to be, for me, it's going to be basically life-changing, because I'm going to have probably the most powerful hardware I've ever had for a long time. So,
yeah, you're gonna see a huge jump, and you're just gonna be kind of blown away since it's been I would say you've been out of touch for so long.
Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of weird. I was in the technology industry for so long, and I used to always want the latest and greatest. But there's something about age. As you get older, you just kind of want things that just gets the job done.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care as much about having the latest,
No.
but in some cases, this makes sense.
Yeah. So by all means, and we're in a great day and age where we don't need the greatest and latest to do any basic type of computing really. So the barrier to entry is very low, and you can get a lot done with the very, very basics, whereas that may have not been the case in the past. So as his parts start to roll in, we'll probably revisit these very same things that we talked about, like why we chose it, what's a good time to wait, why is it good for his build. So yeah.
And actually, if you think about it, for people who build PCs before, I think they would understand it. But for people who've never built it before, it's a fun journey. I mean, you learn a lot about how your hardware works with your software, and then at the same time, you're also going to learn a lot about technology just in general, because you have to learn how to put in diagrams, understand which power supplies go where. You're going to learn a lot about the right CPUs, which ones are the best, which GPUs, and then finally, you're going to learn a lot more about operating systems, because you actually have to install it. Whereas most of the times when you buy a PC, well, all the time, that's pre-built, that's already done for you. So, and it's fun. If you're doing it with somebody else, it's even more fun, because you're kind of like building something together. And yeah, if you've never built a PC, I would highly recommend it. And hopefully my brother in the future, he'll have some of his something available where you can get his help as well.
Yeah, it is a slippery slope, because it is just so much fun. It's a great hobby, but also takes its toll on your wallet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it could be an addiction.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it came to the point where I built a second PC. I didn't even know what I wanted to do with it. I just wanted to build it because it was all too cheap. But yeah, like you said, you really, reap like the fruits of your labors, because like you put in all the time to research it, to actually build it, and then it's something that you use every single day, and something you can be proud of, just putting all that time into it. So yeah. So we'll keep you guys updated as that comes along, and hopefully, for your sake, that you get to use it fairly soon.
Yes.
But for the moment being, it's good to wait. So I think we're in a really good position to be building this PC, and I'm excited for you as well.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, bro.
All right. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is a movie that just came out Friday that you've seen, and it's called The Accountant. So do you know the director?
Yes, it's Evan O'Connor.
Okay. And what has he done in the past?
Well, the one that he's most known for is The Warrior. And that movie had Tom Hardy, and I can't remember the other actor's name, but it was two brothers who were basically MMA fighters. But it's
that's
more
like
than
us.
that.
We're like pretty much MMA fighters.
yeah, just a little bit. But that really got a lot of praise. And unfortunately, the last movie that he did was like Jane Got a Gun or something, and that didn't turn out too well.
Wasn't it a song? No, it's Jamie's Got a Gun.
Sorry. Jamie's Got a Gun. But anyway, I think they had a lot of issues with that, and
Sure.
I don't think it was a big movie anyway.
Right.
But I'm gonna try not to leave spoilers. But by the time you see this, probably a lot of people.
Oh, sad face. Hey, we're back.
Okay, yeah. So the accountant. So it is basically. Like I said, I'm gonna try not to leave too many spoilers as much as possible. Okay, but basically it's Ben Affleck. You know, you've seen his trailer. He is an accountant who is also slash assassin, and he's also autistic as well. So in general, the whole movie itself, in terms of the storyline, it's more or less kind of like I would say a cliche type movie. Okay,
Like a cliche Hollywood action film, or?
Yeah, in that sense,
Sure.
meaning like you've seen this before. Somebody who has these unique set of skills, right? And then some criminals, they come into his life, and now he has to use these skills to eliminate them. And on top of it, there's a whole element of the police, or security agencies who's looking for the good guy. Okay, and so, or in this case, the anti-hero. And a lot of it has been done before.
Yeah.
But what I like about this movie, and there's been a lot of negative reviews on this, and one thing I gotta say, I really feel like reviews that do serve its purpose, especially if they are from like professional movie reviewers. But really, the proof is when you actually go watch it yourself, because your experience might be different.
Sure.
Now, whenever you're watching this movie, you're not going to be, I would say, you're not going to be blown away because it's not something new. But the way in which the director and all the actors and actresses do it is what really sold me on this movie. Okay, and one thing that I enjoyed about it is, and a lot of people talk about this aspect of having the autistic side of it, and I don't think, in my opinion, it's not a big a part of the movie as people would make it out to be, but it does make it different because it does add a lot of elements as to why the character, in this case Ben Affleck, who is called Christopher Wolf, it adds a lot of personality and character building for why he does what he does and why he acts in the way that he does. And I gotta say right off the bat, the acting in this movie was superb, especially Ben Affleck. I mean, I really, really enjoyed him in this movie, and he gave a very nuanced performance. Okay, some people might say that it wasn't hard for him just to have the same stone cold face. However, when you actually watch the movies, there's very small cues of the way he does his facial expressions, and especially one thing I did not expect was his comic humor in this movie. And it's because of his basically his disability that he has that would lend him to do the things that he does, but it's also humorous at the same time. Okay, and then all the other performances: Anna Kendrick, J.K. Simmons, I can't remember all the names, John Bernthal, and then there were some John Lithgow, and then there were some other actresses and actresses. They all did a wonderful job in this movie. However, the story itself, some of the things, like there's a side story. There's like I said, the whole part about the investigative part. Okay, there's the security part. There's the treasury department. They're trying to find out things about Chris Wolf, and honestly, that has J.K. Simmons and the other character. I can't remember the actress, but her name is Medina in this movie. They didn't really serve the movie at all. If you took them out of the movie, despite their great acting, it wouldn't have hurt the movie at all. And John Bernthal, obviously he's in The Walking Dead, but he was also recently in the Daredevil series as the Punisher. He is awesome. He's not in this movie much, but every scene that he's in, he has a very, very dark and menacing aura, but at the same time, he had a great sense of humor. And I said it in my review, I did do a review on this movie as well. This is a really, really fun movie. If you go in expecting it to be fun, okay, you could leave your brain at the door, but it's not like a stupid action movie like a Transformers movie. You actually care about the characters. And when it got to the action, I would have to say this was awesome. And the trailers, they are kind of misleading because they make it out to be an action movie, whereas it's not really an action movie. This reminded me so much of John Wick, like a gun fu. That's what it reminded me of. But at the same time, Ben Affleck, since he did do Batman, he has done action-related movies before. He adds this physicality that you just really can't get with other types of actors who aren't his size, because he's a pretty big dude. But the way he moves in this movie is very quick, efficient, and most importantly, calculating, which works well with his character, who is an accountant. So, you haven't seen the movie, but I think we would have a different conversation if you saw it. But I really, really highly recommend The Count. It's a really fun movie. And as a matter of fact, I'll probably go back and watch it again because it was that entertaining. And those are my favorite types of movies. That's why I enjoyed Deadpool. That's why I enjoyed that so much. And that's why I definitely enjoyed The Guardians of the Galaxy because it was so much fun. So that's pretty much my overall thoughts and review of The Accountant.
Yep.
Go watch it.
So recommended, right?
Highly recommend it.
Highly
Extremely fun movie. And I think, I might be wrong, but I think it was based upon a comic book. So when you watch this movie, it feels like you are watching a comic book origin story. And it just so happens you have John Bernthal, who's the Punisher, versus Ben Affleck, who's Batman. So you're kind of getting Batman versus the Punisher.
Yeah, so was this movie really like, did it have a lot of hype coming into it? Was it really on the radar, or did it just kind of come out of left field?
Well, I mean, me personally, when I first saw the trailer, I was super hyped. I mean, Warner Brothers were the people who put this trailer together. Have you seen the trailer yourself?
I'm not.
Okay, that's so funny. But when you watch this trailer, you just want to watch this movie. I mean, it was just very intriguing right from the get-go. And one of the things that I think is really a mistake for a lot of modern movies is that their trailers, you can pretty much tell the whole movie just from watching the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
And with The Accountant, you could, but you really couldn't. And so there are some twists in there, but that's not really what it is. It's just a different way of telling a story that you've seen before. And once again, I highly praise the acting and also the director in crafting this movie. And I hope there's a sequel. Now, I think right now, as of today, they're expecting the movie to make about $25 million over the weekend. Sure. And this movie was made for about $40 million, $44 million before marketing. So they're going to make their money back, and hopefully they'll be able to create a sequel. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I'll be sure to check that out then.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything else coming up for you or anything else that you've seen pretty recently that you really enjoyed other than that?
No, I mean, I think I mentioned this before. I really do enjoy movies. However, I think the movies in the movie theaters, there really isn't much that makes me want to go to the theater to watch it. I say in a whole year, maybe 5 movies. Mm-hmm. I actually enjoy watching movies on the internet, on Netflix primarily, but also, if you love like anime and stuff, Crunchyroll, there's a lot better options, I think, when you're watching on the internet, than there's. Now, about the only movie that I definitely want to see is Star Wars Rogue One. Mm-hmm. That's coming out in December, so definitely want to see that one.
Yeah, as far as movies I've watched recently, I watched Zootopia again, so I saw it in theaters, and it's on Netflix. So if you enjoy the, the proven 3D animated Disney romps, it's actually really good. I enjoyed it.
I did watch it finally. It was on Netflix.
Yeah, and it was pretty good the second time around too.
Yeah, Zootopia, got a lot of praise. It made tons of money, but I think it's one case where it deserves it. It was really a good, entertaining movie. Yeah, it had a great twist at the end. You probably see Zootopia.
Yeah. We won't put any spoilers in it, but I think one of my favorite parts were the references to the other Disney movies. So there's a part where they showed like the bootleg Disney movies.
Yeah, the Avengers. It was so funny, and also at the same time, a lot of reviewers have said this, but Zootopia has a lot of adult. I would say adult themes, adult stories underneath all of that. Kids movies.
Yeah, I would say that's the case in point for most Disney movie actually. Going back and watching a lot is, you really like you should watch them. I guess for me, since I'm a bit younger, but you should go back and rewatch. There's a lot of things that do go over your head, and watching as an adult, it's still enjoyable for that reason, right? You enjoy it as a kid, you enjoy it as an adult because it really does cater to both audiences. Definitely.
And that's why Disney movies have been around so long.
And that's why they're timeless and they're classic, for that reason, because they're going to be great no matter how old you are.
Yeah, but it's still not going to be Kiss of the North Star because I can watch that.
I think that's a kind of a different category. And so for those of you who don't know, Fist of the North Star is a ultra-violent anime where people pretty much get their heads like punched off every couple seconds. So yeah, I'm not sure if that really fits in the triage of Disney movies, but
but it is timeless though. You have to say, if anybody who's never seen anime, and if you have seen anime, you're an anime lover, you would put Fist of the North Star up there as one of the ones that you've seen.
Yeah,
and Akira, of course.
Yeah, I would say even like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, this sort of still
That's
pretty
right.
timeless to me. They're still really popular today. Man, it's been going on
Amazingly so.
Yeah, amazingly so. Almost 20 years. Can't really think of any other anime series that holds up that well. I mean, you could argue like some of the newer ones like Naruto. That's okay, but I don't know. Something about Dragon Ball Z is just everybody loves it. Everybody's always gonna love it.
Yeah, I don't get it, even though the plots are exactly the same. And
Yeah.
they're still releasing Dragon Ball movies. Some of them were released in the US last year.
Yeah. I saw one in theaters, and that was really cool because everyone was hyped. It was a different movie experience because everyone in the theater really, really, really wanted to be there. So when the opening credits start, everyone was just like, pumping their fists, cheering it on, and that was a different experience for me. But yeah, so normally when even like for these bigger like sci-fi releases, like your crowd of like geeks in there who are like really gung ho about it, but this was different because everyone in every single seat was gung ho about it, so that was really cool to see. But that's what being a geek is all about. Being able to really, I guess, like enjoy your niche, right? Or to find other people who are as passionate as you are for the same thing. So that was totally a geek moment. But yeah. Anyways, so The Accountant. My brother highly recommends it. And technical difficulties. Alright. Alright, we're back again, and Dragon Ball Z is timeless, and The Accountant is highly recommended. Hopefully I have some time to check it out this week, and hopefully you guys have time to check it out too. So let us know what you think about that.
Yeah.
Alright, so for our last topic for today, we're going to be talking about the Samsung Chromebook Pro. Those are the three keywords, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because, you can just mishmash any word. The iChrome Pro, S Elite. Anyway, so the Samsung Chromebook Pro, and that is going to be a Chromebook tablet.
Yeah, it's a hybrid. Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, so basically Samsung announced this premium Chromebook, and it might be one of many. And the Chromebook Pro is basically Chrome OS in a premium build quality laptop / tablet. So it'd be very similar to the Windows tablets, like the Yoga tablets. You could, the hinge you could turn around and it becomes a tablet, except it's running Chrome OS. And in terms of the specs, there's a 12.3-inch screen. It's a 2400 by 1600 resolution, if I'm not mistaken. The battery life is about 10 hours. It has 32 gigs of onboard storage. It has a hexa-core processor. I'm not sure which brand, but I'm thinking it's an Intel. It has 4 gigs of RAM. Now, the thing is, that in itself is not what's really caught my eye. What caught my eye was the fact that they wanted to sell this for $500. I just really don't think that's going to be happening. Now, before this, a lot of Chromebooks are pretty much considered affordable, right? They're normally less than $200, but Google has been steadily going towards more of the premium route. If you notice, we talked about it last week, the Google Pixel phone, but they're also doing that with their Chromebooks, and they're testing out the waters for this. And if you remember, Google also released the Chromebook Pixel a few years back, and they also released the Chromebook Pixel tablet. The Chromebook Pixel Chromebook was actually $1,000, if you remember, high build quality and so forth. And I just really do not see the value proposition there. Why would you spend $500? And this here, I would fault it on the operating system. Although the Chrome OS operating system is basically a browser, I think it's worth it for a very low-end machine that you can just use to browse the web. But for $500, with only 32 gigs of storage, and I'm assuming that's like flash memory, okay? That cannot be the actual hard drive storage. And 4 gigs of RAM, I just really do not think that's going to be a big seller. That's my opinion. So what are your thoughts on that, just now knowing that?
Yeah, so, my first question is going to be, why does Chrome OS need to be in tablet form? I would say the tablet form is kind of really contingent on applications, right? So, for your smartphone or for your iPad or for your Android tablet, right? The whole reason why I want it is because it's just, you have all the apps there. But what can you do in Chrome OS that would, warrants a tablet form factor? I'm not even sure what kind of apps are out there for Chrome OS.
Well, what Android has been trying to do is you can actually run some Android apps in Chrome OS. But I was hoping that, we talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago. We were hoping that whenever they announced the Pixel phone, that they would also talk about the brand new Chrome and Android hybrid, which would be Andromeda.
Right.
That's what I thought. And I'm actually really shocked that they're still releasing this, because it's supposedly going to be coming out the end of October. But if it came out with the brand new hybrid operating system, which has Chrome and Android, then I think
that would make a lot more sense to me. Yes.
Yeah. The value proposition would kind of be there, but I think $300 max. Because once again, hardware-wise,
I mean,
why would you pay $500?
I think we could argue for that, because the iPad Mini goes for $400, right?
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, I think that.
But here's the big distinction, though. You cannot compare yourself to Apple. Because Apple they have the name brand, they have the marketing, they have the branding. So people would pay, obviously, they would pay 2 to 3 times more for something that's less hardware.
but even like right now, traditional Android tablets that are like the 10-inch, 12-inch realm, right? Even those already go for $400. So I would say $400, $500. That's not out of the realm of possibility for me. If it was, because like you say, if like the build quality is there, and really like the only question like we have right now is the OS, right? So if it was an Android tablet, I could see it realistically coming out at $400, $500 for that big of a form factor, right? Like you said, it was like 12 inches, 13 inches.
12.3 inches.
Yeah, and that's actually pretty big for a tablet, because I think most tablets, like iPad size, are around the 10-inch mark. When you start getting more into your kind of like laptop tablet hybrids, like this is more closer to 12-inch, 13-inch, and this is pretty sizable, almost to the point where you can't really use it like a regular tablet in your bed, So for $500, I would say that's not too bad, at least from my perspective.
I just don't think it's reasonable, considering that their primary target over here is going to be the Windows users, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing they did with the Chrome OS. And if you go to the store now, you could get, for less than $200, you could get a full Windows operating system on your laptop versus a Chromebook for about $150, $200. And I'm thinking about the value proposition. Why would you choose that if your price range is about the same? Yeah. And even at $500, I am positive you could get a lower end Windows tablet which has a touchscreen, and the Yoga tablet for around that much, and the spec will still be better than what you're going to get on the Samsung. And at the same time, you're getting a full operating system. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm thinking about the value proposition. I'm not. That's my thought.
So. And to me, it really depends on what you're going to use this tablet for. If this is just going to be a tablet to use like while you're on a couch or while you're in bed, it doesn't make much sense for it to be at that form factor. So maybe this is more kind of like a work.
A test. I think it's a test.
Yeah.
I really think it's a test, because I really do not see, even general consumers, I don't think I've ever met anyone who bought a Chrome OS laptop to do work. Mm-hmm. Most of them are buying it to surf the web. It's a low-cost solution. But it has limits. Like, for example, there's storage. Storage is a big problem. If you have a Chrome OS book, even a low-end Windows, you don't need more storage. You only have a micro SD card or SD card slot. Mm-hmm. And most of them don't come with any type of optical drive, where the Windows ones does. So this is one case where I really feel like Windows is definitely offering you better value. I never thought I'd say that for the low end, and this is not even low end. So I really think they're using this to test the waters.
I could see it maybe if it was kind of like chasing the Surface market.
Yes.
Yes. In that case, $500 for basically a Surface clone or competitor, or whatever you want to call it. It's not too bad, but again, like the OS choice does baffle me. If that was a Windows, 12-inch tablet laptop form factor, that's pretty decent.
It is. Now you say it does come with a stylus, though.
So maybe that's what it's kind of chasing. So yeah, maybe we'll see on that. Yeah.
See, I personally believe that it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. For the same reasons that I thought about the Google Pixel phone. It's just that they're trying to offer you, I would say, good specs, but at least here it's like mid to lower end. But they're trying to sell it as a premium brand
Yeah.
when it's not there yet. You know, I maybe like another 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think Google, the branding, much like Apple or Samsung, that people will say, okay, it's worth the money to buy this brand. But at this point, I really think it's an experiment.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many people will buy Chrome OS. Like maybe less than 3%.
I would say is maybe not the right tools, you know, for what it's trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
it feels,
but I think once they combine Android and Chrome OS, then I really do think the value proposition will go higher.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah.
Because you know, for my service, I love it, but you know, the thing is, like, I don't use it strictly as a tablet, right? You know, I mostly need it for actual, like, you know, web development.
Yep.
Browsing the internet, not really. I have my desktop for that. This is more for me to be just like portable development on the go. So trying to think of what I would use Chrome OS for in like those very similar situations, I can't really think of much, to be honest.
Yep.
Unless you just want a really light internet browsing machine. In which case, I mean, why not just use a regular tablet at that point?
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the whole value proposition, and I really feel like, in my opinion, the best tablet/laptop hybrid right now is the Microsoft Surface Pro lines.
It is expensive though.
I think they're the best because you're going to get all the hardware, plus you get an operating system.
You get the full operating system.
Yeah. You know, like right now, Apple is trying to market their iPad Pros as your laptop replacements. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, for all the marketing and branding, you got to be.
I feel like that one kind of flopped just because I haven't heard anything from it.
No, I haven't. I mean, you're spending over $1,000. If you look at the accessories, the iPad Pro, all together, you're going to spend about $1,000. And there really is no apps that really make it that valuable. It's still a mobile operating system.
Yeah, and to me, really, you know, as well as the Surface kind of functions as both a tablet and a laptop, I would still, you know, say that it leans more on the laptop side rather than the tablet side. Yes, it is a tablet, but it's almost too unwieldy to hold as a regular tablet. So, you know, if Microsoft is doing it the best right now, and that's, you know, take that with a grain of salt, because it's not the best tablet. It's a great compromise, but it doesn't do the best of both worlds, right? It does like the laptop perfectly fine, but it doesn't do the tablet part as good. It still does it, but I would say there's still, you know, places to improve on. And I'm not even sure if you can improve on it from that form factor, right? Because, you know, when you're making a compromise, you need a size big enough to do work on. But at the same time, you want it to be portable enough to hold in your hand. And anything less than like, you know, 12 inches, you probably can't work on as a laptop. But at the same time, you know, anything bigger than 12 inches or bigger, it's like, it's hard to use as a regular tablet, at least in my experience.
Yeah. So I'm predicting that maybe next year Apple's going to release their hybrid, and then it'll be revolutionary.
Yeah.
And not to dig at Apple, not intentional, but it is intentional because you kind of see where that's heading. You know, they're going to get people used to using their tablets as their primary operating system, and then later they will release their tablet/laptop hybrid, you know, and people will be accustomed to it by that point, you know. So I definitely see that happening. And, you know, if you look at Apple products, like with their, even their Air laptops, right, or even just their laptops in general, they're getting extremely thin. And so I could easily see Apple producing a tablet/laptop hybrid. And then by that point, I think people will be ready to do that, you know, and they're already spending a lot of money for one anyway. So it makes perfect sense. So I predict in the next year or two that Apple will be releasing a Surface Pro competitor, because right now, in my opinion, there is no better solution if you want a combination, and they have the market corner right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that Microsoft had the advantage of was that they came first to market with this, right?
Yes.
So now you start to see some other competitors, some other clones. I know Dell has one. I think Lenovo's releasing one pretty soon too. I think, you know, it already may be out, but yeah, to me it really hasn't taken off. At least because I don't see a lot of people with these, you know, Surface tablet hybrids really.
Yeah, because it's expensive.
It is expensive. Yeah, I mean, so the actual Microsoft Surface it is expensive, but that's why there's some of the competitors and the clones, right? To kind of ease the cost. I think like the Dell floats around 700, 800, and, you know, I think the same goes for the Lenovo as well. But to me, it doesn't replace everything just yet. So it's not at that stage for where you can just kind of ditch everything else and just have your only, tablet, laptop hybrid. So I guess it'll be interesting for me to see if that really takes off, because I feel like there's not much more you can do with the form factor, really. You can make it any lighter, like, weight's not really the issue. Form factor, I would say maybe that might be holding it back. Like I said, because you can't really have the best of both a laptop and a tablet in the perfect form factor, at least from my perspective. It's always going to lean towards one or the other, right?
Yep.
At least in my opinion. So
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And they knew that, and so it's laptop first, tablet second.
Yeah. Even being a laptop first, it's like, the main reason why I wanted to pick up my Surface Pro so I can use my mechanical keyboard, right? Because I didn't have a need for that. But for other people, I feel like, why not just have a regular, laptop keyboard which you're gonna be carrying around anyways. I mean, obviously there's like the Surface Touch type cover, or the type cover for it. Yeah, I mean, you even take a look at it now. Like, Surface is in 4 generations right now, right? And it's been around for quite some time. I think since 2012, 2013 around. And it just hasn't blown up.
Well, I'm thinking what Microsoft is doing is they're waiting, because they really don't have any competition, really.
Yep.
I mean, if you think about it. So what I think they're waiting is whenever Apple releases their version, that's when they're going to drop their prices. I mean, the same thing they did with if you think about it, when Chromebooks came out, right? Windows didn't do anything. You couldn't find a low-cost Windows laptop for less than $200. But guess what? They were quick to move. And now they're in the low-end market. Now they're outselling Chromebooks.
Right.
So right now, they really don't have any competition, really, for that particular segment of the hybrid tablet. But once Apple releases one, I can guarantee you they're going to put the prices down.
Yeah. So maybe we can piggyback off the Apple marketing, because the reason why I chose Surface Book, I feel like I'm in a niche, right? Like, I wanted something extremely light, and I wanted something where I can use my own keyboard on and just pretty much be wireless. So it ticked all those boxes for me, but I'm not like the average user or the average consumer.
Yeah. And I don't think most people who watch like really geek channels or use Linux are probably not your average consumer anyway.
Yeah, so we'll see if Apple can change people's minds about that.
Sure. I think they'll be able to. I mean, they know what they're doing when it comes to the consumers.
Debatable, right, with the iPad Pro?
Yeah. But I mean, still, they have more success.
They still have a fairly good shot of making it reality, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so anyways, back to the Chromebook Pro. When is this going to be releasing? And it's going to be...
well, for the last time I read, they took down the page already, but it looks like October 24th.
Oh, why do you think they took down the page so quickly?
It was leaked, leaked.
Right.
So they took it down. So the last time the page was up was October 24th. But like I said, I really think it's just a test by Google and the manufacturers to see if there's a market for it. That's all. I mean, because if they're going to make a big deal about it, they would have done what they did with the Google Pixel phone, and every news outlet would be talking about it, right? So, and to be honest with you, they haven't been very favorable towards the phone since we talked last. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask for your general feelings on what Google's been doing in their strategy, really, because it seems like it's not really hitting the notes for us.
Yeah, I think Google's being Google. I mean, one thing I've always praised the company for doing, they try out a lot of different things. They do. I mean, I don't think there's any technology company that I can think of besides Amazon. Amazon, I think, does a lot. And I really think Amazon's more successful at it than Google.
Yeah, they're definitely stepping up big time. Maybe not so much as in the past, but for their recent efforts, I would definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, Amazon is becoming a leader in more areas than I think any other technology companies, in my opinion. Because, they're in the publishing area, they're in the movie industry now, with Amazon Video.
They're even in the game development industry because they have their own game engine.
Yeah, they have Twitch TV, they have their own game engine. Yeah, so Amazon, I think that is one that you're going to have to really look out for. And I think companies like Google, Apple, Samsung, they know it. I mean, especially Google and Apple. Because if you think about it, Google, once again, they're still known for search, right? Although their hands are in many different areas. They're in mobile as well and Android. And Apple right now, really, they're primarily in hardware. You know, so if people stop buying iPhones, I think Apple, even though they're extremely valuable, have a ton of money. They have more money than probably any technology company available to them at any one time. However, if people stop buying iPhones, they're going to be in trouble because what other Apple products or services would you buy? I think Apple has more to lose than Google because Google is already in more places. But Amazon, I could easily see them being the top tech company in the next few years because there's so many areas.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see like where all these companies started out and how they all started migrating to the same area, to the same market, right? I mean, like you said, Google was primarily search, Apple was primarily, you know, hardware, Amazon was, I guess, primarily shopping at first, but now it's become, the lines are really blurred between, you know, all the companies, and they have their hands in each basket now, so it is really interesting to see it, all of them vying for the same spot.
Yeah, because all of them, and they're not dumb. All
they understand.
Know where the markets are heading. I mean, for example, Amazon delivers food to you. That's ridiculous. Amazon Fresh. You know, and if you think about even like the business aspect of the Fresh, right? They're now becoming competitors to Walmart and in your groceries, right? And even people who are employed at those companies, they're going to be worried because Amazon's going to replace you. You know? So
it's kind of funny that you said that because this kind of goes back to my whole you know, getting deals on PCs. So there's a retailer called Jet.com, if you're not familiar with. It was originally started out to be a competitor to Amazon because I want to say the CEO just really despised Amazon for some reason. Yeah, so basically I got bought up by Walmart quite some time back. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think technology is extremely valuable and it's even more valuable going forward because now every company, regardless of what industry that they're in, you have to rely on technology and you have to be in multiple areas. So I'll be really interested to see where things go. And a lot of times, like what you're saying about Jet, right? I mean, these companies, they own so many other companies that, like Twitch TV, if you weren't like knowledgeable about technology companies and what's going on, you would have never known they're owned by Amazon.
Yeah.
You know,
it's getting more like into these huge conglomerates where maybe a lot of like the normal, you know, users, consumers don't realize it, but maybe it's like, I guess you can kind of compare it to, you know, television broadcasts, right? Because a lot of channels are owned by like the same parent companies, and
that's right.
And it's becoming, you know, very similar in the technology field as well.
Yeah, I mean, as the world is getting bigger, it's becoming smaller. Like, for I don't know, going off on a tangent, but if you think about telecoms, right? Most people don't know that T-Mobile is not a U.S. company. They're owned by a Dutch company. And then the same thing goes with Verizon. They're major stakeholders in Europe. I can't remember which country. And then also even consumer products, right? Anheuser-Busch. They're owned by a European conglomerate, InBev. And I think they're Latin conglomerate as well, but it's InBev. And so all the companies that you think are something, they're actually something else underneath. They're all part of these large multinational conglomerates. It's actually amazing, you know. So, anyways, got off track with that. Chromebook Pro, I think it's going to be a flop. It's my opinion.
Flop for the consumers, more research and data for Google.
That's correct. You're right. More research, yes.
All right, so yeah, we'll see how that pans out, and you know, I guess we're not expecting too much. If you guys decide to get one for whatever reason, let us know. And
share it.
Share it. Tell us.
I want to laugh at you, but I really want to know.
No, we won't laugh at the news. They'll laugh at us because they're gonna tell us how wrong we are and how amazing this is. But anyways, so yeah, I guess we're gonna cut it short today due to some of the technical difficulties, so hopefully that doesn't really interrupt your viewing or listening experience. And yeah, we're gonna cut off today. I'm Jake.
Next week, Jake,
sure.
Elwood, if you want to leave some comments on what brothers we should be next week, leave them below.
Yeah, do a Halloween episode and just be like I was thinking of like a super mashup of every brother we had so far. So part Luigi, part Jake, part Billy, part Ryu. I don't know. So we'll see.
That'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah, maybe for like a year-end episode, we'll bring back every single brother and try to incorporate it into our final costume.
That would be fun.
To our final form, if you will. But yeah, so let us know, because I think we might even run out which brothers to be sometimes. So yeah,
right.
help us out, guys. Seriously. So let us know, and yeah, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Like, comment, subscribe below, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for watching.
See ya. Cool.
Man, that was so weird, man. It had so many technical difficulties because that whole part was